This is Andy for the Chosen Prime with a quick video review of TFC Toys P-03 Bigbite, otherwise known as the Seacon Skalor, their updated version of Skalor. Here you can see the figure in his monster mode next to his rather large box. And on the box you can see that, like other Seacons, he can turn into 5 different modes. He can be his monster fish mode, a robot, he can be a leg, he can be an arm, or he can be a weapon. And so he can be an arm or a leg for their version of Piranacon, Poseidon. Here you can see what some artwork of what he would look like when he's fully combined. So again, Bigbite here could be any kind of part of this group other than the torso. Inside the box, the reason it's so large is that he does this. Inside the box is this foam inlay, and you can see that they protect it for transport. So he does come packaged in his monster mode. You also get a pair of swords that'll show up that he can hold. Comes with a pair of guns, and these transform and can actually kind of join together. He comes with the right hand for Piranacon. The instructions show him turning into the left arm with the left hand, but he actually comes with his right. He comes with an additional port piece that lets him connect to the weapons for weapon mode, as well as the foot for when he's in leg mode. The foot plate will be coming with the next Piranacon figure. He comes with the instruction booklet, as well as a collector's card. The instruction booklet is a little bit hazy of how things kind of go. It needs a bit more pictures, and hopefully this video will be instructional. The final piece that he does come with, that's not, I don't have, unfortunately. He comes with a little stem here that is used when you connect him and to make him into a gun for Piranacon. And I'll show off that later where that would be, but we just misplaced it for now. So let's go ahead and take a look at details here for Bigbite. Taking a look at some monster mode detail here for Bigbite. You can see these, his plastic here is kind of this nice light blue. He's got some lavender paint as well as some lavender plastic. And he's got some clear bits here, like this clear red for his fins, and then his tail piece here is clear blue. And he does all have these little bits of yellow kind of clear, including light piping for the monster fish eyes. As far as articulation here in monster mode, these little arms here are on ball joints as well as they are on a hinge here, so if you want to move it lower or back or further down, you have the ability to kind of move that around, and it'll peg and lock in place if you want to. It's got a hinge at this point here, and then the claw can actually hinge in and fold as well, so you can have him kind of, you have some basic posability with this arm, which is kind of nice. It's better than just like a little thing. The legs here are on ratchets, so he will stand once you balance to get his balance correct, and then the knees can hinge. The front of the monster mode here, these larger teeth can rotate in, and then the head can kind of pivot ever so slightly, but it's not really meant to move. But the lower jaw has a whole lot of kind of positions you can put it in, so you can hinge it up into the jaw. And you can, it's got kind of a double hinge, so you can see that you can kind of move it further down, move it up, kind of wherever you want the jaw to be placed. You have different options of how you want him, kind of have him yelling, and then these teeth here also flip back. Finally, his tail has got several different ball joints throughout it, so you can bend and pose it, kind of up and down. It's got a lot of options as far as posability, and you can unplug it if you wanted to. But you know, it's probably one of the better kind of ball joint options, and it does. You can see that it holds all the positions that you kind of put it in. To transform Bigbite from his monster mode into his robot mode, we come to these teeth here in his lower jaw and push them back. The instructions say to fold these teeth back, but I don't recommend doing that due to how they're going to get in the way if you do that. Come to his hands here, and these outer claws will fold in on both sides. Come to this spine, this clear spine back here, lift up on it, and the way it's designed, it'll actually split into two. So just kind of get, and then they're on rotation hinges here in the back. You want to just kind of fold and rotate them back so they're out of the way. We want to start splitting the kind of fish head or the monster head here. If you look, there's a seam that goes all the way through it to the bottom. So kind of just get a grasp on the head here, kind of get this starting to split, come to the underside, grab the jaw, start to split these pieces. At that point, these are on hinges, these kind of center pieces are on hinges, you want to rotate up these arms so that you have clearance, and the head kind of jaw moves the other way so you can rotate these out of the way with the jaw. So make sure that this kind of is pushed out of the way. Move the hand so that we can get in here. The legs here will unpeg. These pegs here, these blue pegs will kind of fit into this gray channel here. We want to unpeg it and hinge these backwards on both sides. And now we come to this piece. If later on when you're trying to transform him into any of the kind of monster modes or the leg or the weapon mode, and these pieces here just will not kind of, when you eventually, as you can see there's two pegs, they will not peg together. That's because you need to make sure that when you go into this mode that the torso is fully extended and the knees are fully folded in. It's possible to do these modes with this collapsed as well as the knees closer, but then these pieces here won't tab in, peg into each other. But go ahead and unpeg both of these. And then there's these feet panels here. You can see these two pieces here. We want to lift up, and they're pegged into the torso. There's a peg hole and a peg that they match up. So we'll lift up on both of them. Now we've got the legs fully able to split. So rotate down one of the legs. Move this fish head here, and you can see there's a hinge. We want to move it lower. And so do the same thing on the other side. Go ahead and fold it out. See the hinge, take the half, and hinge it down to lower onto the leg. And we've got most of his legs kind of started here. Come to the back. These lower jaw parts, they will fold in on themselves into the interior like that. So just grab it and fold this in, and it'll fit into that part. These panels here with the lower jaw will fold in on this hinge, and you can see that they will kind of fit securely, and there's like kind of a peg hole here. The red arm here, we want to hinge this rotation joint up, and then there's the upper peg hole we want to peg into, and then have the hand point downwards. Come to this foot, and then on this ball joint, rotate it so it's flat. Like it's flat like this way, and then this piece on this kind of ball joint hinge, there's a tab hole and a tab here, plus you can see where the ball joint kind of sits. We want to peg in this tab to make the heel spur like that. So with the other leg, we will take the jaw part on this hinge here, rotate it in so that it fits in securely, rotate up the arm and peg it into the top with the arm pointing downwards. This panel here will fold downwards, and then this piece here on this kind of double ball jointed hinge folds in onto itself, and then it'll peg in and sit flush for his heel spurs. And there are his legs. Come around to the front. Make sure that the smooth side here matches the same side as the chest panel. There are two rotation joints in his torso here, so you want to make sure it's this way, not the combiner kind of angle ratchet here. So just press down and press down twice, and there's now no gap between the chest and the torso here. Come to the back. Move these wings out of the way temporarily and flatten this little mini wing. Unpeg the tail and hinge it back. And we want to hinge it back further so we can reveal the head. Grab the head, rotate it up, and then put it back into place. The parts here, these parts will kind of rotate back on a hinge, and there are tabs here on the tail piece that we want to plug these into to hold them into place. So again, just kind of get them. It might take a little bit to kind of get the hinges just right to get it so that these peg in, but they will peg in the little clear pieces into the tail. The arms will close in further, lift up on a panel here to show up the hand. Do that on both sides. And there is Bigbite in his robot mode. So let's go ahead and take a look at some detail for the Seacon. Taking a look at some robot detail here for Bigbite. He's got the same kind of nice and unique color scheme throughout in his robot mode, just like he did in his monster mode, as well as other modes. This clear red is really bright here on his back. And he's got the same kind of nice detailing here throughout, fairly clean. Not a whole lot of hollow spaces. His head is on a ball joint, and you can tilt it as well. He's got a yellow light piping there. He does have a kind of a sneer on his face there with an upper lip. As far as his arms, they are ratcheted and rotate fully around. You can hinge it out quite a bit. That double hinge here, you can lower and raise it if you want the shoulder higher or lower. Bicep swivel, double jointed arms. His hands can rotate. He's got a really strong waist swivel here. His legs are kind of universal, but they have a soft ratchet this way and a stronger ratchet that way. As far as knee articulation, he actually has a double jointed knee. So you have two spots where you can rotate, but you can see that you can get a high knee bend with him. As far as his feet, this foot panel here is on a ball joint, but it's kind of stiff and kind of hindered by the panel behind it. You can move, toe action forward and back, but you really can't get any inward kind of ankle articulation. You just really outward. And the same thing for the back kind of heel spur. It's on a ball joint as well, but even if you unpeg it, you can get a little bit of kind of ankle articulation by unpegging it. But still really nice. He's really nice looking in this mode. As far as his weapons, you can take a sword here, and you just would slide it into his hand. Pretty simple. He looks good wielding it. It's nice and large. As far as his weapons, you can take the gun here, and it's just got a standard peg where you can hold it. And it just pegs into his hand. And alternatively, the guns do transform. You just lift up here and then flip out this longer extension, and you can hold the gun that way as well. So, a lot of options here with Bigbite. He's just really kind of almost pretty here in his robot mode. And in the sneer, although subtle, is kind of cool to see. Let's take a look at his other modes. To get Bigbite into his arm mode, we want to go ahead and start from his robot mode. Unpeg these little clear pieces in the back so that we can pull back the tail and hide the head. So pull it back, rotate the head on this hinge, and then rehide it, and move the tail and repeg it into the top. The arms, we want to hide the fists. So lift up on these panels, hide the fist. Do that on both sides. And if we look at the back of these kind of shoulders here, there's this peg which will match up to this peg hole here. So we want to rotate the arms, fold them up, and then just peg them into that spot like that. So do the rotate it, spin, peg it in. And we want to push in the arms fully so that they are against the body. Come down to the legs. We will essentially want to get it back mostly to fish mode. So fold this panel out, rotate the arm around off of that, unpeg it and rotate it around so that we have clearance to rotate and hinge out this piece here. We want to make sure this jaw is out of the way enough that we can actually fully get this out, rotated further. And we'll do this on both sides. Let's get this out of the way. Fold it out, move the jaw so that we can fully move this out of the way. And now we want to fold the heads kind of back onto itself. And so, like I mentioned earlier, if you were to try to leave it this way when you go into fish mode normally without the legs being fully, there's a hinge here and a hinge here, if it's not fully down, when you try to fold over these kind of flaps to collapse it in, they hit this torso piece and they don't match up. Now we can grab the hand part. We want to make sure that this piece is rotated out of the way so we have access to the little T piece there. And this T will slot in to this side, these pegs here at the base. We want to re-sandwich the legs together around that T peg. And we want to make sure the head parts here are pushed around, and then we make sure that these teeth are pushed in. And then this hinged part here will fold up and rotate up, and it'll kind of get a grasp and hold it all together, and it'll hold the hand on securely. So now we just need to take these two parts here, and they'll fold onto each other. These panels here will unpeg, and fold around. And you can see there's the two tabs that match across them. Kind of helps to have these hinge. You want to kind of have it so it hinges, so it's square like that on both sides, so that it's easier. So again, kind of move the hinge out further and then fold it over. And then now we can go ahead and peg those two pieces together. These little red arms here, we want them to rotate and peg into the lower hole on each side. So just peg that hinge in and then lay them flat against the body here. The feet will now peg into the lavender part of the waist with these peg holes here. So just fold them down, peg them into place. Come to the hand. Essentially this is the top of the arm. Rotate the fist around so that the thumb and this blade is on this edge. The torso, grab the torso as well as the upper bit and pull, showing off the kind of extension in the ratcheting part. Come to the tail and peg this panel so that you can get access to the combiner port. So lift up on this panel, fold it in on itself, and lift up on this hinge, and you can see there's the combiner port. We want to rotate it down. It is very stiff. It's got a very stiff ratchet. But there's where it'll peg into the main torso. This piece will now sit flat like this, and there's a peg that matches the peg hole here. And so we've got the combiner port kind of open. Finally, come to these little wings here. We want to hinge them back and rotate them, and there's a little tab on here that'll match a peg hole here on the back. And we just want to kind of rotate them into place, and they'll sit in those spots on the back. I'm going to do that for both. And there is Bigbite in his arm mode. He does have a very strong ratchet here that can bend 90 degrees. He does have the double rotation joint there, so if you want to have him bend and rotate, you can. Of course, the combiner port here, it does ratchet up and down, so we'll have some shoulder articulation from it. The hand can rotate. The thumb is on a ball joint, and it has a single kind of curled joint there. Individually jointed fingers, and they can all have multiple joints. Very stiff. The hand can rotate again, and it's just a really cool kind of Piranacon combiner arm here out of Bigbite. To get Bigbite into his leg mode, first we need to have him be in his monster mode. Come to this upper fin here and lift it up, and then it'll split down the middle. But it's getting a kind of a fingernail and kind of just pulling it apart. And it'll be two separate pieces that are on hinges. And we want to just kind of rotate them away out of the way for now, away from the main torso, like that. Come to the front here, and you can see there's this long seam. We want to split the kind of front here to get access to this this port interior here. And so we take that little gray piece, and it's got a little T section, and we want to rotate up this hinge for now and make sure the hinge is kind of facing downwards with the peg on top, and sandwich it between kind of the two halves of the head there, and then now that you've got it in that T-peg kind of in those holes, you want to sandwich it all back. And the same thing for all the head parts and the jaw. Just kind of push it all back together. Come to this combiner port, hinge it down, and there are little clips that once you kind of just spread it a little bit, it'll lock into place on each side, kind of fully securing this port to his head. The arms here, we want to peg it from, if you look, there's two different peg spots where they can kind of peg in, normally on the top, but rotate it forward so it's pegged down to the bottom and move the arm back. So just kind of hinge it, rotate that part downward here. The legs, if we look, there is a peg hole here that matches this peg here. We want to just rotate and ratchet up the foot so that it hinges up into that spot, and then just point the toe. And we do that on both sides, just kind of ratchet it up and loosely peg it in there. The tail will unpeg and fold onto his back. We want to rotate this tail part so it's flat like this. That lets us take these pink pieces and they will hinge and rotate backwards, and then there's a peg on the clear part that'll loosely peg into the torso here. So just hinge it down and kind of loosely peg it in. To expose the combiner port, lift up on this little panel here and close this down and then just reclose it. And there's the combiner port for where the torso would plug in. And here's the combiner port where the foot would be. And so here is Bigbite in his combined leg mode. To get Bigbite into his weapon mode, we need to get him back into his monster mode, and most of the conversion is very similar to his leg mode. Come to this spine again, and split it, and get it onto his back, so it's out of the way. Again, hinge them on these hinges in the back. We want to split the head apart again, to get access to that port. Same kind of thing, take the little T-piece with the peg up top, and sandwich in between those two halves, and re-put it all back together, repegging the monster head back. Take the head once more of this piece and hinge it backwards, folding the teeth down. Lower jaw will hinge backwards and sink this way. And now we come to those guns that he has. So here are the two guns, and we want to open them up and fold out the gun pieces here, and then we want to go ahead and fold in these pieces. So do it on both, so they're fully extended on both individual guns. And if we look, there is a peg on the back of one and a peg hole on the other, and we want to just kind of sandwich them together, which will be now the front of the gun mode. Come to the front. Again, we want to sandwich down and lock this little hinge into place, like we did earlier. And then that kind of square-ish peg will match into this hole. And it's a bit tricky to get it to fit, but it will fit if you kind of just work it a little bit. It will eventually slide into place and lock in, and then there's the front of the weapon mode. Next, we want to come to the arms and move them from that upper peg hole to the lower peg hole to kind of fill in the gap here between the mouth and the gun. So just, kind of hinge it forward a little bit to that front hole, and kind of just have it kind of grab the gun with those arms. The legs just rotate up like so, just kind of getting out of the way, kind of making it a kind of cohesive shape. Just kind of angle it a little bit. The tail unpegs, and we won't be using it for gun mode. These little clear pieces hinge back like before and just loosely peg into these spots. Lift up on this panel, expose the combiner port. We need to be able to, and then flip down this piece. We need to flip down the combiner port. It's very stiff, so be careful when you're doing it. It's going to be a very strong combiner port when it's all said and done. And get it down so it's in that position. Fold this piece up so it's sitting here, and then this peg will match this peg hole. If we had the little gun handle here, and that's shown in D, we would just take it and it would slide into, you can see there's a channel here in this combiner port. That's where you would be able to have him held and be in his gun mode. So it's a pretty nice and interesting weapon mode they're able to kind of get out of this figure, even though it's so complicated. Robot mode comparisons to some other third-party combiner limbs. Here we've got Mastermind Creations Tigris, which is part of Feral Rex / Predaking, and then here's Neat Toys Alberic, which is part of Orden / Abominus. You can see that Bigbite here in his robot mode is roughly the same kind of larger Voyager scale robot with the other two limbs here. Bigbite does have a bit more mass overall due to the way that his legs and the tail are kind of there. He's also a lot more sturdy than the other two. TFC's kind of learned some new tricks and gotten some better production runs here, because this is this very solid toy. And Bigbite here as the Seacon Skalor definitely fits in with these other Decepticon combiner limbs. Alternate mode comparisons for those three limb bots. Again, we've got Tigris, Bigbite, and Alberic. And they're all this larger kind of Voyager sized version of kind of these combiner animal parts. And they have the same kind of stylistic kind of design across all three. So again, here in his beast mode or monster mode, you can see the Bigbite matches the other two. Limb mode comparison. So here we've got Bigbite and here we've got Tigress. So this is Feral Rex. This would be their Poseidon or Piranacon. You can see that Piranacon is going to be a little bit bigger than the final Feral Rex figure. It's a bit more stumpy and short here on Tigress, but same kind of nice detail, a little bit smaller hand. When compared to Unique Toys Orden or their Abominus, you can see that again Piranacon here is going to be a bit bigger when all said and done, from the hand to the overall arm and stuff like that. I think they'll all be in scale so much, but Piranacon definitely is going to be a big guy here when we get the full Poseidon. Just a quick robot mode comparison with Combiner Wars Deluxe. You can see that Bigbite is much larger, that kind of Voyager scale combiner limb. And obviously more detailed than a standard retail combiner. And here's a comparison with Alpha Bravo in his limb mode. If you've never seen one of these third-party combiners in person, you can definitely tell here Poseidon / Piranacon is going to be massive when he's fully done, especially compared to Combiner Wars Deluxes. Some final thoughts here on TFC Toys Bigbite, or their take on the Seacon known as Skalor. This is an excellent update of that original G1 character and toy, and it has all the modes that the original toy had as well. You know, he can be an arm, he can be a leg, he can be a weapon. Really great looking and posable robot, as well as a really menacing looking kind of sea monster. TFC's done a really good job with these latest combiner limbs from the company. They're very solid. I mean, all of the joints and the way that he all pegs in, the way he can move, his posability, there's very few limitations here with Bigbite. He's just a kind of an excellent toy all around, and it's just a bonus that he turns into Poseidon / Piranacon. Bigbite here is currently available from the Chosen Prime. If you're a fan of these Voyager scale combiner limbs, you really can't go wrong with Bigbite, so take care.